Have you ever wondered what happens after death? What if someone came back from there with an urgent warning about the fate of humanity? In today's video, you will hear the shocking story of an American pastor who died during the sermon and had an apocalyptic vision where fiery angels revealed that July 2025 will change the world forever. Get ready to hear a story that will shake your faith, your fears, and your choices. Like now to support the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss any revealing testimonies like this one, and write here in the comments which city you are watching from, so that together we can make this community of seekers grow. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a cold November Sunday here in Nashville. The church was packed. Entire families gathered for morning worship. The lights hung yellow over the wooden pews. The smell of cheap coffee mingled with the strong perfume of the ladies in the congregation. I was clutching the Bible tightly, preaching about redemption, salvation, love, those words I had repeated so many times without ever questioning their price. And that was exactly when I felt it. In the middle of a sentence, a pain exploded in my chest, as if a huge iron hand were crushing my heart. I gasped at the podium. I heard the microphone crack. Someone shouted my name. I saw horrified faces. My vision blurred like glass fogged by breath. My legs gave way. The Bible fell to the floor with a dull thud. A buzzing sound invaded my ears, drowning out the screams and the sound of the pews scraping. I felt cold sweat trickle down the back of my neck. Then, nothing. Blackness. But not the kind of darkness you get when you close your eyes. It was a living nothingness. An absence so absolute that it seemed to consume me from the inside. For a moment I thought, he's dead. That's it. It's over. But I wasn't dead in the way I'd imagined. I was still conscious. I could think. I could feel. Suddenly, like a flash of light on an empty stage, a beam of light exploded around me. It was so white it didn't hurt my eyes. It went through me like I was made of glass. The pain was gone. The heaviness was gone. I was floating. I looked at my hands, and they were translucent, pulsing with something like liquid fire. I felt each beat of a heart that was no longer physical. Around me, there was no ceiling or floor. A soundless wind gently pushed me forward, and then the scene opened up, an immense field of impossible flowers, colors that bled pure light, petals that moved like living, breathing creatures. The colors did not exist in the world. Violet that burned like fire, blue so deep it made you dizzy. The smell was like every spring on earth concentrated in a single breeze. I heard a song, but not with my ears. It invaded my mind like sung thoughts. It was sweet and terrible at the same time. It seemed to call my name, without sound. My entire soul trembled. The presence of this melody was as real as my own hands, and it was there, open-mouthed, paralyzed, that I understood. I wasn't dreaming. I was dead. Yet there was no fear, only a peace so thick it felt like substance. I didn't want to go back. I never thought the end would be like this. But deep down, I knew this peace wasn't the end. It was just the prelude to something I wasn't ready to see. I floated in that endless field without ground or sky. The flowers glowed with colors that pulsed like living hearts. The air seemed made of liquid light. I breathed and felt meaning, not just oxygen. Every particle vibrated with something I could not describe, a love so absolute it hurt. But even in this peace, I felt that I was not alone. It was as if something immense was watching me expectantly. Then the air opened, literally tore apart. It was like watching a transparent veil being ripped away. From within emerged a being. It didn't have a human face, but it wasn't a monster either. It was tall, with a body made of liquid flames, fire that illuminated without destroying. Its contours moved like a bonfire blown by the wind, but they never went out. And in place of eyes, there were suns, 2 burning suns. When it looked at me, I felt my soul being ripped out and displayed before it like an open book. There was no voice. There were no words. He spoke directly to my chest. I trembled without having flesh to tremble. "Mark, you know why you are here." But I didn't. I wanted to speak, but there was no mouth. The answer was not in sound, but in pure understanding. You need to see. You need to remember. The garden ground shook. The flowers bowed as if in worship. The music stopped. Everything went completely silent, the kind of silence that makes your bones ache. If I still had bones, he raised one of his flaming hands, and space tore apart again. Before me appeared something that was neither a screen nor a mirror. It was like solid water floating, reflecting not my face but time. I saw glowing lines snaking like veins. I saw dates burning like embers, and among them all, one in particular pulsed. July 2025. She didn't just appear, she seared herself into me, like a hot iron on my skin. 3 times she shone, 3 times she burned me. I tried to turn my face away, but I couldn't. I was trapped in that living mirror. The images began to flow. I saw raging oceans, cities being swallowed by black waves, rivers that became dry lines on the cracked ground. I saw people running, screaming without sound, entire crowds in flight. But the most terrible were the faces, empty human eyes, without light, without soul, just pure despair. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. All I could do was feel the terror multiply until it became its own entity inside me. The fiery angel, or whatever it was, didn't look away. You need to remember. The words were not comfort. They were an order, a command engraved in my very being. I could not deny it. Even in death, I was being summoned to something beyond myself. I was merely a messenger, and I was beginning to understand that the message was not just for me, it was for the world. I floated in that endless field, without ground or sky. The flowers glowed with colors that pulsed like living hearts. The air seemed made of liquid light. I breathed and felt meaning, not just oxygen. Every particle vibrated with something I could not describe, a love so absolute it hurt. But even in this peace, I felt that I was not alone. It was as if something immense was watching me expectantly. Then the air opened, literally tore apart. It was like watching a transparent veil being ripped away. From within emerged a being. It didn't have a human face, but it wasn't a monster either. It was tall, with a body made of liquid flames, fire that illuminated without destroying. Its contours moved like a bonfire blown by the wind, but they never went out. And in place of eyes, there were suns, 2 burning suns. When it looked at me, I felt my soul being ripped out and displayed before it like an open book. There was no voice. There were no words. He spoke directly to my chest. I trembled without having flesh to tremble. Mark, you know why you are here. But I didn't. I wanted to speak, but there was no mouth. The answer was not in sound, but in pure understanding. You need to see. You need to remember. The garden ground shook. The flowers bowed as if in worship. The music stopped. Everything went completely silent. The kind of silence that makes your bones ache. If I still had bones. He raised one of his flaming hands, and space tore apart again. Before me appeared something that was neither a screen nor a mirror. It was like solid water floating, reflecting not my face but time. I saw glowing lines snaking like veins. I saw dates burning like embers, and among them all, one in particular pulsated. July 2025. She didn't just appear. She seared herself into me, like a hot iron on my skin. 3 times she shone. 3 times she burned me. I tried to turn my face away, but I couldn't. I was trapped in that living mirror. The images began to flow. I saw raging oceans, cities being swallowed by black waves, rivers that became dry lines on the cracked ground. I saw people running, screaming without sound, entire crowds in flight. But the most terrible were the faces, empty human eyes, without light, without soul, just pure despair. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. All I could do was feel the terror multiply until it became its own entity inside me. The fiery angel, or whatever it was, wouldn't look away. You need to remember. The words were not comfort. They were an order, a command engraved in my very being. I could not deny it. Even in death, I was being summoned to something beyond myself. I was merely a messenger, and I was beginning to understand that the message was not just for me. It was for the world. I couldn't move. It was as if my roots were embedded in the living ground. The mirror floated in front of me, rippling like turbulent water, spitting out images that pierced me like spears. I saw the globe spinning serenely in space, blue and white, too beautiful to hide the horror that was coming. Suddenly, black spots began to spread across the continents. It was like mold growing on old bread, but this was smoke, fires, explosions. I saw cities reduced to concrete skeletons. The sky was stained red and gray, as if blood and smoke had mixed with the clouds. The image grew closer. I saw people running through the streets with children in their arms, trying to escape from collapsing buildings. I saw storms that were not just wind. They were walls of water swallowing entire neighborhoods. I saw rivers evaporating before my eyes, their cracked riverbeds opening like the mouth of a hungry monster. I could feel the heat of the fire, even without a body. I could hear the roar of the waves, even without ears. It was more real than anything I had experienced preaching in that little church in Nashville. The angel approached, his fire illuminating the mirror even more. July 2025. The words appeared like embers in the air, floating, burning. He forced me to look at them. I saw the date repeat 3 times, like a seal impossible to break. Then the view changed. I saw looted markets. I saw armed men guarding water trucks. I saw mothers dividing moldy bread among their starving children. The empty shelves looked like open tombs. My chest burned. I begged inside, "Stop. I can't take it anymore." But he wouldn't stop. There was no mercy that needed to be shown. The mirror swiveled, showing me maps, borderlines being erased by waves of refugees. I saw fields turned to desert, crops burned, dead cattle in mass graves. I saw people lined up to receive dirty water handed out by soldiers. In the midst of all this, human eyes, soulless eyes, eyes that had given up. That was the worst. It was as if hope itself had died before the bodies. The angel spoke without sound. Humanity has reached its limit. I saw children in makeshift concentration camps. I saw old people abandoned on the side of the road. I saw lawless, purposeless violence. But above all, I saw a gray, heavy sky, as if the planet were in mourning. I cried, even without eyes. I cried with my soul, and the angel just watched. You need to remember. I wanted to run, disappear, erase my existence, but there was nowhere to go. I was a prisoner of this revelation, and in that moment I understood that there was no way to go back to what I was before. Even if I returned to life, I would carry those images tattooed on my conscience until my last breath. As I sobbed, with no lungs to fill with air, the angel drew closer. His flames did not burn my non-existent skin, but consumed my doubts. His eyes were 2 suns about to explode. He raised his hand and the images dissipated like smoke carried by the wind. Silence returned, a silence thick, alive, full of expectation. I knew he wanted to speak, even without a voice, and I listened, straight to the soul. You think you've seen the end, but it's not the end. Those words weighed on me like mountains. It's childbirth. The words sounded like a dull thunderclap. Everything around me shook. The flowers bowed as if in prayer. The air glowed blood red. I trembled. The birth? I thought. From what? From whom? He answered me without having to ask out loud. The images came back, but now they were different. I saw the earth cracked, smoking, dead. But from within the fissures, something was beginning to sprout. Impossible flowers, trees with leaves made of light. I saw children walking barefoot on previously barren ground, smiling at each other. I saw people embracing each other in the remains of burned cities. I saw old men teaching young men in forgotten languages. I saw water gushing where there had been sand. The colors were returning, but they were not the same colors as before. They were brighter, purer. July 2025. The date shone in the air again like embers blown by a divine wind. It's the beginning, not the end. I felt something like hope, but it was painful, because it came with the certainty that before rebirth, there would be death. Before healing, there would be pain. Before light, a darkness such as the world had never known. The angel showed me people dying of hunger, but also people sharing the last piece of bread. I saw crowds running in panic, but also small groups praying in the dark. I saw weapons being wielded to kill, but also hands being stretched out to heal. He explained without sound, "The world will have to choose. We cannot choose for you. Fear or love, selfishness or sacrifice, darkness or light." I wanted to speak, to protest, to beg, but there was no way. I was just a witness. The mirror of time closed in a flash. The angel extended his arm, pointing at me. I felt every non-existent cell in my being vibrate with the command, "You will see everything. You will remember everything. And you will say everything." Pain shot through me like a spear. I understood. I wasn't special. I was just a messenger, someone condemned to see so others could decide. And deep down, even through the horror, I felt a thread of acceptance blossom, as if my soul finally knew why it existed. The garden seemed to darken. The colors that had been so vivid began to grow denser, as if a night were approaching within the light. The angel remained standing before me, but other beings began to appear. First, outlines of fire, then clearer shapes. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all made of the same liquid flame that did not burn, only illuminated. They stood in a circle, and suddenly everything went so silent that I thought the universe had stopped breathing. The silence wasn't empty. It was filled with something indescribable, something that I felt weighed down on me like a sentence. The angels raised their arms at the same time. From the flames of their bodies, letters appeared, like embers written in the air. Each letter was a flash. J, U, L, H, O, then flaming numbers, 2, 0, 2, 5. I wasn't just seeing it. I could feel the letters burning into my chest. They seemed to be tattooing themselves on me, as if I were made of wax and someone was branding the date with a hot iron. I tried to move, but there were no muscles to command it. I was just pure consciousness, trapped in this ritual with no escape. Then a chant began. It wasn't a human voice. It was a chorus that seemed like a storm of meaning, something that passed through my mind like lightning bolts. I understood without wanting to understand. That date was not just a milestone on the calendar. It was a breaking point, a divide. The angel guiding me came so close that I could see impossible details in the flames of his face. Smaller faces, hundreds of them, as if every soul he had ever touched lived within. He didn't speak with words, but I heard, "Everything will move. Everything will reveal itself. The seed of the new will be planted in the womb of the night." As he broadcast this, the images returned. I saw crowds of people again, but now they were on their knees, looking up at the sky. The sky seemed torn asunder. A light so intense that no human lens could withstand it began to leak through the black clouds. I saw flames falling like rain. I saw men dropping weapons and crying. I saw children pointing upward with eyes that glowed like lanterns lit from within. July 2025, repeated the chorus, 3 times. Each repetition came like a wave that shook everything inside me. I felt that if I came back to life, I would never forget. Not even if I lived another 100 years. I wanted to ask if there was any chance of avoiding this, but there was no question, and there was no answer. The silence that followed was definitive, as if the cosmos itself confirmed that the course was set. Amidst that certainty, I felt the first breath of real fear, because even among all the visions, the scariest thing was realizing that I couldn't change anything. I could only warn. The silence shattered like glass breaking, and the mirror of time opened again. But this time it was different. It wasn't a window onto the entire planet seen from afar. It was a plunge straight into the middle of human chaos. I was pulled into it with nowhere to run. I saw American streets, familiar places, supermarkets, gas stations, suburban neighborhoods, but nothing was as it should be. Storefronts were broken. Shelves were empty. Crowds pushed and shoved, snatching boxes of groceries from each other's hands. Screams rent the air, and the dull sound of gunfire seemed to punctuate the rhythm of destruction. People lay bleeding on the ground as others ran over them to get water. Yes, water. I saw gallons of it being fought over like bars of gold. A woman screamed as she held 2 children by the hands, trying to protect them from armed men who were looting the food truck. The images were not limited to the United States. The mirror showed other nations. I saw borders exploding into makeshift refugee camps, tents torn apart by the rain, children too thin, eyes too big, clutching pieces of moldy bread like treasures. I saw military convoys firing tear gas into starving crowds. I heard the choir of angels chanting something that sounded like a lament. The harvest will be bitter. My chest felt like it was going to explode with the weight of it. I thought, why show me this? What for? And before he could finish the thought, the answer came like a spiritual whiplash. For you to tell, for them to choose. The scenes became more intimate. No longer crowds, but families. I saw parents beating their own children to silence them, driven mad with fear and hunger. I saw siblings turning on each other for a piece of meat. I saw people killing each other not out of anger, but out of sheer panic. In contrast, the mirror also showed something different. Small groups sitting in basements by candlelight, holding hands, whispered prayers, sharing what little they had. I felt something different in their eyes. Light, a small but living flame. The angel made me fix my gaze on them. They are the seeds. The phrase was not said, but planted inside me like a truth that I would never be able to pull out. The mirror spun again. The streets were deserted, abandoned houses, wild animals roamed empty neighborhoods, and in the sky, that date, July 2025, it burned among the clouds like heavenly fire. I felt the terror rising like acid, because there was no easy happy ending here. It was clear that before any rebirth could come, the world would have to go through a night too long for most people to endure. The mirror shook like water stirred by a stone. The images changed again, pulling me deeper into the horror. I saw dark American cities without electricity, buildings plunged into a ghostly gloom, cars abandoned on avenues like skeletons of an obsolete past. I saw lines stretching for miles in front of military distribution centers. Men with rifles watched frightened families. Children cried from hunger, but no one had enough food to give them. A soldier shouted orders to disperse people who were pushing and shoving in desperation. A shot rang out. Absolute silence. And then screams. The scenes unfolded without mercy. Hospitals were overcrowded but without power, with nurses crying from exhaustion. Patients were dying by the light of makeshift flashlights. I saw tanker trucks surrounded by barbed wire, guarded by masked men, like mobile fortresses. But they weren't carrying gold or oil, they were water, drinking water. My chest ached. Even without a body, I felt the physical pain of this truth. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't a vague prophecy. This was a script already written, a contract sealed in blood. In the midst of all this, the mirror showed me human eyes. Most of them were filled with hate, fear, betrayal. I saw neighbors looting each other's houses. I saw men taking advantage of helpless women. I saw old alliances shattering like glass. Then the angel turned the mirror slightly. The image changed. A basement lit by candles. A group of people sat in a circle, with cans of food stacked beside them. They shared scraps without complaint. They prayed. A man held the hand of an old woman and wept silently. A woman breastfed a pale but still living baby. The flame that illuminated that group was different. It seemed to radiate something beyond the basement, as if it took root in the invisible. The angel whispered inside me, "They chose love." The images continued. Elsewhere, makeshift camps for the displaced, volunteer doctors tending to wounds without expecting payment, men and women building wooden shacks to shelter families that were not their own, hands dirty with dirt, but clean of selfishness. Then again, the contrast, an empty mansion, looted to the rafters, with hateful graffiti on the walls. A rich man huddled in a bulletproof room, surrounded by weapons and supplies, crying alone. The angel did not judge, he only showed. The message burned into me like a hot iron. The test will not be just of hunger or thirst, but of who you will choose to share even in scarcity, who will see in the other a brother or an enemy. I felt my entire being tremble, because I understood that this test wasn't just theirs, it was mine too. All of ours. The mirror didn't close, it expanded as if to swallow me. I was thrown into it, plunged into another layer of horror, but this time it wasn't just physical, it was mental, spiritual. I saw screens, thousands, millions of screens, televisions, cell phones, computers, all of them mesmerizing crowds. I saw people with glassy eyes, their pupils dilated as if drugged by blue light. Their faces were shadows, devoid of humanity. A sea of people consuming lies as if they were hotcakes. I heard seductive voices whispering half-truths, preachers shouting about salvation while peddling fear, influencers amassing fortunes from panic, politicians feeding on division, pitting neighbors against each other. The angel forced me to see every detail. I felt spiritually sick. It was like swallowing poison. I saw churches full of people, but devoid of compassion. Pastors selling promises of immunity, demanding payments. Faithful praying for the extermination of enemies instead of for their salvation. I saw priests kissing the devil and spitting fire on the humble. The picture changed to mega-corporations injecting lies into the web. Products that promised happiness while poisoning bodies. Fake news spreading like plagues. A web of lies so dense that discernment itself drowned in it. The angel whispered like a blade, "Confusion will be the greatest weapon." I wanted to cover my ears, close my eyes, but there was nothing physical for me to control. I was forced to see, forced to feel. Then I saw families split, parents disowning their children, siblings denouncing their siblings, all because of narratives sold as absolute truths. It was as if a black mist had come out of the screens and infiltrated our hearts. I saw schools empty of wisdom, but full of cheap ideology. I saw children conditioned to hate before they could even love. I saw social networks transformed into arenas for moral lynching. And in the midst of all this, small groups disconnected from the networks. I saw a man throwing his cell phone into a river and kneeling in the mud to pray. I saw a woman destroying the TV in the house while her children hugged her and cried. I saw people gathered in deep silence, as if listening to something bigger than themselves. The angel indicated these groups with a slight gesture. They will remember. They will teach others to remember. Suddenly I heard the choir of angels singing again, but now it was a pure lament, a wailing that shook the garden soil. It was mourning for the human soul, for the kidnapped truth. And in the air, like embers in the wind, the date appeared once more, July 2025. I felt it like a verdict, an ultimatum. The mirror snapped back, and for a second I thought it was over, but it wasn't. It began to reconfigure itself as if it were a living organism. Its surface rippled, changing color, until it became something clear, a map of the Earth seen from above, slowly rotating in space. I recognized continents, oceans, coastlines, but not like on paper maps. This map pulsed. It was alive, and it was sick. Entire sections glowed bright red, pulsing like festering wounds. The red covered large coastal cities, skyscraper-filled metropolises, industrial regions, densely populated areas. The red areas shook violently, as if screaming in pain. I saw the United States tinged red along its coasts, with fainter patches within. I saw Europe covered in glowing fissures, like cracked glass about to shatter. I saw Asia burning with symbolic flames, especially in the overcrowded cities. I didn't immediately understand what that meant, but the angel didn't leave me in the dark. He raised his arm, and as if he were throwing blue ink over the map, certain points began to glow in soft, serene tones. The blue areas were not capitals or metropolises. They were small towns, forgotten villages, forested and mountainous regions, places with harsh climates or humble soil. I saw blue dots appear in the Appalachians, in the central plains of the United States, in the mountainous regions of South America, in the savannas of Africa, in the jungles of Southeast Asia. The angel did not speak with words, but I understood. These are the refuges. These are the places where the seed will survive. I saw brief images of these areas, people working together to cultivate the land, collect rainwater, share food. I saw whispered prayers around campfires. I saw children studying by the light of lanterns. I saw the sick being cared for with herbs and loving hands. In contrast, the red showed tanks crushing protests, piles of bodies covered in sheets, armed guards manning barbed wire fences. I saw looks filled with suspicion and hatred. The message was clear as broken glass on flesh. Power would shift. The richest and proudest places would fall first. The humblest would flourish. The angel forced me to look at the blue dots. They will teach the new way of life. They will remember the old covenant. I saw people praying in different languages. I saw Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, indigenous peoples, all together in shared silence, lighting candles that seemed to illuminate not the place but the spirit itself. And in the sky of that living map, the letters of fire appeared again, slow and relentless. July 2025. They floated over the globe like an eclipse of fire, like a warning or a promise. I trembled because I understood that there would be no neutrality. Each of us would be forced to choose where to plant our own soul. The mirror vanished like mist blown away by the wind. Everything around me vanished, and I was back in that impossible garden. The flowers breathed color, but now there was a solemn air about them. They seemed to be watching me, as if the place itself was aware of what I had seen. The angel stood before me, but his flame had dimmed. It was no longer a raging fire, but rather a soft, glowing ember. Even so, he was still terrifying. In his eyes I saw exploding supernovas, and at the same time the sadness of someone who knows the end of every story. He raised a hand toward my chest. I felt an indescribable heat. It was like a hot iron touching my soul. It hurt more than any physical pain I had ever felt in my life. I tried to pull away, but there was no body to move. There was no ground to retreat from. His flame merged with me for an instant. I saw my chest open as if it were made of light, and within it the same word written in fire, July 2025. I screamed, or rather, my entire consciousness screamed, but there was no sound. It was an existential scream. You will come back. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. You will say what you saw. I understood that there was no negotiation. It was a commandment, a spiritual seal, an order as old as time itself. The images passed before me one last time, faster than thought. The sea-swallowing cities, people praying in cellars, soldiers guarding water like gold, children with eyes like lanterns, humble communities surviving, bonfires surrounded by people singing softly, temples without walls, maps glowing blue on red, and above all, the date burning in every cloud, every glance, every tear, July 2025. I tried to ask why me, but I didn't need to. The answer came to me, without sound, because you listen. And in that moment I realized with horror and gratitude, I was not chosen because I was good or special. I was chosen because I could carry the weight, because I had seen the abyss within myself. The garden shook. The flowers closed as if they were crying. The sky exploded with light. I felt myself being sucked back, ripped from that plane. Everything went white, then black, then nothing. And before the end, one last sentence rang out with the force of thunder in silence. Tell them, even if they don't listen, even if they mock you, even if they kill you, tell them, because the seed needs soil to sprout. It was at that moment that I woke up, but there was no more body, there was no more life. I was still there, in the fire of that mission, knowing that I would never sleep in peace until I had accomplished it, and the date kept shining inside me, July 2025. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.